Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in this week's video I'm going to talk about recoil control, and we're going to spend a little bit of time in the classroom here, and then we'll actually go out to the range to kind of show you in practice actually what I am talking about. So probably the next biggest step from somebody who's going to go from a beginner shooter to an intermediate shooter is how well that they can control their firearm when they start to increase their speed. So hopefully by this point you are more than comfortable shooting at a specific target within a few inches of what you're aiming at, anywhere from about 15 to let's say 30 feet, 35 feet. Once you've gotten to that point, now I would recommend to try to increase your speed. So this is where recoil control or recoil management comes into play, and it really is a little bit more advanced of a skill, but it's something that should really not take too long to master. It just takes repetition and practice. There is some time and dedication that you're going to have to do specifically for this. I would also recommend filming yourself. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we actually get into the range, to kind of see and make corrections as you go and as you learn. If you watch my Handgun 101 series, you should have a basic understanding of how to actually grip the pistol. Now when we start talking about recoil control, it's essentially all grip and actually understanding what is happening to the pistol so you can get your sight picture and sight alignment and continue firing, except you're just going to do it a little bit faster. If you have a good grip, it shouldn't be really any more difficult than to just hold on and understand where your sights are going to move as you shoot faster. The biggest thing that I see people have problems with is the grip itself. So they might not be holding it tight enough, maybe they're holding it way too tight, and it's a little bit difficult to kind of portray that over the camera because I'm not actually there. But the biggest tip or kind of thing that I can say to help you with that is to grab the pistol like you are firmly giving somebody a good handshake. When you grab somebody's hand to shake it, you hopefully are not giving them a little limp noodle. You want to actually hold onto their hand, have a good firm handshake. With that being said, you also don't want to crush their hand where it's painful to actually hold on to. If you start to really grab onto that pistol, just crush it, it's going to cause shake, it's going to cause actually more instability because you're going to fatigue over time, and it just doesn't absorb as much recoil as you probably should. Just think about actually shooting the pistol as if you're grabbing somebody's hand when you're shaking it, a nice firm strong handshake. You're gentle enough where you're not hurting them, but you're not so gentle that it's just a limp noodle. It's just a good grip. Once you have all of that finished, essentially what you are going to do is just understand where your firearm actually impulses. So when you shoot a handgun, if you have a good grip, that sight is going to come up just a little bit and then it's going to drop back down. So it'll just make sort of this rocking motion. If you really get a good grip and you really lock in that pistol, you're going to have a little bit less of that muzzle flip. So when I talk about muzzle flip, all I'm actually talking about is the muzzle or the end of the barrel actually coming up when you shoot. And that's just from the recoil impulse of shooting a handgun. There's not really any way to mitigate that easily, although there are compensators and ports in barrels. That's something I would say is even more advanced on the line, and we can talk about that in a future video. So if you have a good grip, right, all my fingers are wrapped around, I'm holding onto the handgun firmly, that recoil pattern should in general go straight up just a little bit and then come straight back into place. So the biggest indicator of that I would say has a good grip versus somebody that does not have a good grip is the sights coming back into the same place. So recoil is inevitable. There's no way to mitigate that completely. It's just got to happen. Your sights coming back into the same spot as where you were just shooting is a good indicator of a good grip. If it's not coming back to the same spot, say it's going left or right, or it's too high or it's too low, then I would say you're not holding on the pistol tight enough. Now once again, if you are holding the handgun so hard that it's shaking, relax. I would say that could also be a factor. So this is that part where you kind of just have to play around with it and see what works best, and there's no real other way to get over that. Like I said, the biggest part of recoil control is your grip. The next thing is understanding that muzzle flip and the recoil impulse of your handgun. Every handgun is going to have a recoil impulse. It's just the way that it is. It's just physics. You can't completely mitigate it. There are things like compensators or ported barrels that can help with that, although that's more of an advanced thing that I'm going to talk about in this video. I probably will cover that in a little bit. But essentially the biggest indicator that you are shooting and have a good grip is your ability to get your sights back on target. So when I have a good grip and I'm shooting, my sights come up just a little bit and then they should drop right back in place. If they are not, they're going left, right, up, or down, then you have an issue. So your grip is wrong, your finger positioning might be not right. If it's going in a certain direction every single time, it may be that you are gripping it way too loose. So when we go into the range, I'll show you a clip of me shooting, so you'll see the cylinder cycling, but you shouldn't see a whole bunch of muzzle flips. So I'll show a good example and a bad example of grip, and then we can talk about that a little bit later. Let's go on the range and see a demonstration. All right, so up first, I'm going to give you a bad example of recoil control or recoil management. So you should be able to see that my muzzle has a lot of flip, it's not under control. I'm shooting fast, but my sights are not aligned, they're not coming in the same spot, and they're going everywhere. All right, so keep in mind, I need a good firm grip. I want my sights to come back in the same spot that they were every single time. And this example is not going to be that. So it's probably going to look like I shot the target with a shotgun. My muzzle flip is going to be crazy. I don't have a good grip on the pistol. It's loose. It's just bad. And then when I start to shoot faster, it suffers a bunch. So here's a demonstration of that. Absolutely, as you saw, there was so much muzzle flip. It looked horrible. It was bad. Now let's actually do a good demonstration of recoil control. So now I'm going to demonstrate good recoil control. I'm going to have a good solid grip. You should see that there's not a lot of muzzle flip. There's going to be some. It's something you can't really negate completely, like I said before, but it's going to be much, much more limited than what you just saw. So here's a demonstration of that. After watching that, you probably can tell a pretty big difference. The muzzle flip was not as crazy, my sights were going much more in line, and overall the shots were a much tighter group. This is my target now that I've finished. As you can see, I didn't do as bad as I actually thought. I only had one Charlie with the really bad recoil control, but I want you to notice the difference between these 10 shots. There are 5 shots all on the A, and all 5 of those are when I had good recoil management. So that was that second video that you probably saw. The muzzle flip was a lot less. I could shoot faster. My sights were going right back to the same spot, hence why I could hit so well. These other 5 shots were when I had a bad grip. I didn't have good recoil management. The muzzle was going everywhere. It looked horrible. It felt horrible. You know, I still hit the target. I want that to be known. It is possible, but I'm not stacking the rounds like I honestly could and should be doing. With all that being said, let's go back to the classroom and talk a little bit about things that you can do to improve that and ways to practice this when you come to the range or when you're at home. Now at this point, you've seen a good example of recoil control and a bad example of recoil control. And you might be saying to yourself, how do I actually practice this? Now I have a good understanding. I see examples. I can kind of base what I know off of that. But how do I actually practice this when I go to the range or when I actually am at home dry firing? Now you're probably saying to yourself, how do I actually practice this and implement it so that I can have good recoil control when I shoot? There are 2 different ways. One's coming to the range and actually shooting live ammunition, which is absolutely the best way. I know it kind of stinks, but there's not really a better way to do it than to actually shoot live ammo, because that's how you get the recoil. Now you can also practice this a little bit with dry fire, although the actual recoil impulse and control is different, but there are some slight differences and things that you can pick up when dry firing at home, especially if you're using a red dot. It makes it much simpler. So let's talk about dry fire, because that's something that everybody can do and is going to try to do first, hopefully, because it's free. If you have a red dot at home and you are trying to practice recoil control, understand when you pull the trigger, or even subsequently when the trigger's already been pulled, you can still practice your trigger squeeze and trigger pull and just see where that dot is moving. In theory, it shouldn't move at all because you have a good grip, but if it does, understand that, address that, and play around with different things, your different grips, tightness, where your hand position is, to try and mitigate as much movement as possible. Another way to actually manage this or practice this is to use one of the Mantis devices. Now, we sell a couple of them in store. If you want to see any of them, stop by, ask us questions, and we can get you set up. But essentially, it clips onto the end of your handgun, connects to an app, and will show you specifically essentially what you're doing wrong. When you actually pull the trigger or are dry firing or practicing, it will tell you, hey, you're going left, you're right, your grip's not good, adjust this, and it'll give you tips and tricks based on that. And it actually has helped a lot of people that I know have bought it and tried it. Now, by far the best way to actually practice your recoil management is to shoot live ammunition. Now, I know that is more expensive and a little bit more difficult for a lot of people, but it's kind of absolutely the best way because it's the only real way to get recoil. Now, we do offer some targets in store to kind of help you and maybe practice with, and that is target number 4 and target number 7. Each of these targets have circles, either a different amount of them or different sizes, and if you put them out at different distances, you can shoot as fast as you possibly can and try to keep all of your shots in the circle, and then going from there, you can make corrections. Like I stated a little bit before in the video, if you record yourself, especially in slow-mo, if your phone has that ability to kind of see where that handgun is moving, you can make little subtle corrections, tighten your grip, loosen your grip, all these different things just by watching and actually doing it. So I understand this can be a little bit frustrating or difficult because you actually really need to come in and shoot to practice recoil management and control, but understand that 95% of everything that goes into recoil management or control is your grip. If you have a good solid grip and the pistol is coming right back to where it was when you shoot, you should be good to go. That takes time and repetition and ammunition that just really can't be replaced any other way. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that this video helped. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down in the comments below. You can also stop by in store or give us a call. We'll be more than willing to help you. Remember to like and subscribe if this video helped you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.